stream. So I guess it's working.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, I think we are live. Do me a favor, and if you are on Facebook, if you could pull up the TNB Tax and Financial Services website just to confirm that we are live, and then absolutely share this to your timeline so we can spread the word. As you can see, the title of today's webinar is EIDL directly from the source. I've been sending a couple of emails out to everyone because, you know, I'm sure you guys are seeing it as well in some of the Facebook groups and posts of individuals that are all out guaranteeing some type of approval for EIDL or some type of approval for an SBA grant. And it's really important to me that that our small business owners get the accurate information. And so that's why I called it directly from the source. We have lead lending specialist, Mr. Rod Perkins from the Alabama SBA District Office, here to go over the EIDL program more specifically. If you are following us, you know that about 2 weeks ago, maybe, we did a general SBA funding webinar. And in response to a lot of the questions that we were getting, and also in response to SBA Administrator Guzman's announcement last Thursday of these upgrades to EIDL, we just had to come back. We had to come back and talk about the options of EIDL and 7A and just drill down into that more specifically. And as I was saying to the group of business owners that are connected with us via Zoom, if you have been denied EIDL, I've gotten some really good questions from those who have emailed me. I want you to absolutely ask those questions directly to Mr. Perkins. If it's something that would contain your sensitive information, and you don't feel comfortable asking the question, then please do put your email address. You can send us a direct message for those that are on Facebook. If you're in Zoom, put your email address. And so after this webinar, I will create a secure portal, client portal for you to submit your information. And just as I said to our Zoom group, when I say translate information that you may have gotten on that denial letter, we are not guaranteeing any approvals. We're simply serving as a community navigator to help you understand whatever language you got on your letter, if you have any options. And to me, denials are opportunities, right? Because whatever that denial piece is, that's something for you to start at to fix. Okay, so that's the stance we're going to look at on today. And just like I said, you know, Mr. Perkins and I can go on forever and a day, but we're going to try to keep this as an hour event. And of course, in the replay, for those who haven't been able to catch us in the replay, you can still put your questions here, and anything that is over my head, I will absolutely give to Mr. Perkins. So without further ado, I'm going to switch it over to you, Mr. Perkins, to get us started on talking about the EIDL pieces and just the difference between that and 7A.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to thank TMB for giving me this opportunity to, you know, have this conversation, have this dialogue, and that's what it needs to be, a conversation and not a lecture, you know. So I'm thankful for having this opportunity. One thing I always like to note is that, and I'm pretty sure the audience is aware, you know, I have my laptop and the camera's on my laptop, but I have a big monitor attached to my laptop because I need big print. I guess I'm getting old, my vision is going. So I need big print. So I'm staring up at the monitor. So I'm not looking directly into the camera. So it may seem kind of odd or weird, but I just want to point that out. You know, A denial reason, it is an opportunity, and that's the way we need to look at it, and I'll say on the front end, the primary denial reasons for, and really probably the primary denial reason for an EIDL loan would be unverifiable information. And so SBA on the front end, where we're actually doing a identity verification check. And if we don't have sufficient information to verify your identity, we'll send a decline letter. And so that's an opportunity for you to go through the reconsideration process and provide documentation that verifies your identity, such as, copies of your driver's license, the back and front copy of your driver's license, or, the tax returns. I mean, we require the 2019 tax returns because the EIDL loan amount is based on the 2019 tax returns. So we require the tax returns, and we require this 4506T, which is a form that you complete, giving SBA the authorization to pull a copy of your tax transcripts directly from the SBA. Directly from the IRS. Now, I had a guy that I spoke with on just yesterday. He pulled his own tax transcripts, which you can do that. And he wanted to know if he can send me a copy of the tax transcripts, and I upload them to the system. Now, I don't think SBA, would operate in that manner. I think we would want to get the tax transcripts directly from the Internal Revenue Service. And we use the tax transcripts to verify, the tax return information that you submitted matches what has been reported to the Internal Revenue Service. So, that's the primary reason, and credit is a reason, even though the Beacon score, is a 570, Beacon score, the minimum score for the EIDL, and I'll say the EIDL less than $500,000. Okay. Now there's still some opportunity, for you to go through the reconsideration process. Even if your Beacon score was less than 570, you got a decline for credit reason, you can go through the reconsideration process and, justify, the credit issues that are reflected on your personal credit report. So you can go through the reconsideration process if you get a denial for credit reasons. And so we'll go ahead and get started. I just wanted to point those two things out while they were fresh on my mind. But we'll go ahead and get started. And again, I like to provide a stimulus update. And some of you, if you've been on this call before, you've seen this. And so I'm not going to, the emphasis today is the EIDL and the changes, that are made under the EIDL program. But I do want to point out a couple of things as far as the stimulus update. And I'm going to hit the programs that are still active, that we're still accepting applications for. And that includes the COVID EIDL, which is what we're going to talk about today. And if I say EIDL, I mean COVID EIDL, because you may read something about the EIDL loan program, which is a program in itself. It's a permanent disaster loan program, the EIDL. So in the case of a federally declared disaster, then that opens the door for individuals. Well, for the EIDL, it's solely for business owners. It opened the door for business owners to apply for disaster assistance. Now, there's a physical damage loan, which is a disaster loan that's open for individuals as well as business owners to apply for disaster assistance in the case where there's a federally declared disaster. Now, some people are, going through the process of applying for a COVID EIDL, and they were impacted by the floods. And so in that area, I'm thinking, South Texas and New Orleans, Louisiana, the Gulf Coast area, and in parts of New York and New Jersey, those areas have been declared a federal declared disaster. And so that opens the opportunity for individuals and business owners to apply for disaster assistance. but we're still accepting applications for the COVID EIDL loan program. And, that program runs through 12/31/2021 or until the money runs out. Now, you may have heard that we've increased, initially the maximum, loan amount for the COVID EIDL was $150,000. And then we increased it to a maximum of $500,000. And just recently, we increased it to a max of $2 million. So the money could, I don't really know how much money is left in the pot. The last I heard is, slightly less than $100 billion, which that's a lot of money, but the money could go fast. I'm thinking, we may not run out of money, but, we got into, you have until 12/31/2021 to apply for the COVID EIDL. And the terms, I'm going to talk about the terms on the next slide. I'm going to compare the 7A loan. I like to mention the 7A loan, even though the objective is to ensure that you have understanding of the EIDL, the COVID EIDL program, and the recent changes that have taken place. But I want to mention the 7A loan as well, which is a guaranteed loan program. And so I talk about the terms, up to 30 years, 2.75% for, nonprofit entities, 3.75% for for-profit businesses. And I need to modify this because it's really up to $2 million now. And one of the things I'll mention here, these are underwriting guidelines, but I'm just going to mention that, to be eligible for the COVID EIDL loan, you must have been in operation before January 31st, 2020. And so that's why we base in the actual loan amount on the 2019 tax returns. Now, it says in operation before January 31st. Now, if you started January 31st, the first through the 31st, then you're eligible to apply. And obviously you started January, 2020. Obviously you don't have 2019 tax returns. So you're still eligible, and we'll base the decision on the 2020 tax returns. And so we'll talk about the COVID EIDL in detail in just a minute. The targeted EIDL and the supplemental EIDL programs, we're still accepting application. It's a kind of an invitation only. It's not open to the public. It's kind of an invitation only. And to be eligible to apply, and I like to put emphasis on being eligible to apply, you have to have received a EIDL grant in 2020, or you were in line to apply, you submit your application for the EIDL grant, and we ran out of money. So that makes you eligible to apply for the targeted EIDL and the supplemental EIDL. Now, under the targeted EIDL, you must have received an EIDL grant or must have been denied or not. Well, we ran out of money before we got to your application. And so if we ran out of money and you submit your application, that makes you eligible to apply for $10,000. In the EIDL grant or the targeted EIDL is capped at $10,000. And so if you receive, let's say $3,000, now we changed the rules. Initially the EIDL grant was a flat $10,000. And then SBA changed the rules, and we changed it to $1,000 per employee. And I think, we didn't have the authority to do that. And so the folks in Congress, they made the correction, but they added some caveats to it. And so you have to qualify for the increase. So you weren't automatically going to get the $10,000 grant. And if you received $3,000 in 2020, then you weren't going to automatically get the $7,000 to get to $10,000. You had to apply for that increase, for that difference. And the difference is, you get, the difference is between $10,000 and the amount you received in 2020. And so, for example, if you received $3,000, $1,000 per employee, you had 3 employees, and you received $3,000, that makes you eligible to apply for the difference. And now, in order to get the difference, then you must have been in a low-income community. You must have experienced a 30% reduction in gross sales or gross receipts or gross revenues, and you must have had less than 300 employees. That makes you, that qualifies you to receive the difference. And if you were in line and we ran out of money, you meet these guidelines and you get a flat $10,000.
Now, Mr. Perkins, you know me, I gotta interject in here because I actually have a pretty good question from a gentleman that sent a IG message. So he says that he's like 4 feet or 4 miles, whatever it is, from this LMI line, right? We've all probably been on this map that determines whether or not you are in a low income community. How rigid is that? Like, is it to the science? Like, no, you must be within these borders, or if you're like across the train tracks from the border, can you elaborate on that at all? Or is it just tried and true? If your pin drops outside of this low income community grid, then you can apply. Can you talk to me about that?
Well, for the folks who are, with SBA who are, evaluating these requests. Now, I don't know how much leeway they have, because I've gotten, a lot of questions and a lot of concerns from individuals, from business owners saying that, I stand out in front of my business, I look across the street and it's a low income community and they're celebrating because they got, they got a grant, and I'm standing here, just right across the street. And I was told that I wasn't eligible because I was not in a low income community. So I don't know how much discretion they have, but I'm thinking it's either you are,
Yeah.
either you are or you are not, and there's some instances where, and I don't know if there's a problem with the mapping, but there's some instance where there was a gentleman that was in Selma.
Okay.
And if you ask me, all of Selma is a low income community, but he was declined, because he was not in a low income community. And so, you can always request a reconsideration or a review of, your denial, for low income community, but I don't know how much leeway they have.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Okay. So, and that's actually a good question because, a lot of folks were questioning whether the map was accurate or not, and so I don't know. They can request a reconsideration. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
And so, the targeted EIDL, the maximum loan amount, the maximum grant amount, is $10,000. And so again, you receive the invitation from SBA, that doesn't mean that you're going to automatically get the difference between what you received in 2020 and $10,000. That means that you're eligible to apply for that difference. Now, the supplemental EIDL, the same guidelines apply, and you're eligible to get a flat $5,000. So you can get a total of $15,000 between the targeted EIDL and the supplemental EIDL. Now, you have to qualify for the supplemental EIDL as well. You have to be in a low income community. You have to experience a 50% reduction in sales, and you must have less than 10 employees.
And Mr. Perkins, this is gross sales, right?
This is
right.
Yeah, gross sales.
Income.
Yeah. That's gross sales. That's not net income.
Right.
A lot of us,
yes,
majority of you probably experienced more than 50% reduction in net income.
Right.
You probably lost money.
Right.
So that's a good point. And maybe I need to adjust that. In sales, gross sales, or gross receipts. I think it's stated as gross receipts. Maybe I need to modify that. In my mind, gross sales, gross revenues, and gross receipts are the same. So I think it's stated as gross receipts.
Okay.
The Community Navigators Grant Program, that's a grant program designed for nonprofit entities, and I may say, big nonprofit versus little nonprofit, all nonprofits are eligible to apply. Okay, let me put that out there. And so The big nonprofit, is the one that's eligible to receive the grant from the Community Navigators Grant Program. Now the big nonprofit would not necessarily provide the service, and the purpose of the program is to provide technical assistance or business assistance to underserved markets. And so the big nonprofit, as I say, is eligible to receive the funding, and they can contract out with small nonprofits, quote unquote, smaller nonprofits and for-profit businesses. And I like to emphasize for-profit businesses, because when you talk about, contracts and contracting, typically for-profit businesses are excluded. It's designed for nonprofit entities. But when we talk about grants, typically for-profit businesses are excluded. And so a for-profit business, such as a CPA firm or a tax firm, they can enter into an agreement or enter into a contract with the big nonprofit to provide, it could be tax return training, to underserved markets. And so, and I mentioned that, we're no longer accepting applications, and there's been no communication of who has actually received the Community Navigators grant. And so I'm not even aware of who in the state of Alabama has applied for the grant. And so hopefully we'll get that announcement out pretty soon. Hopefully everyone can see this screen. And so, we could spend a lot of time on this screen. And so what I have here is the difference between the 7A loan program, which is our guaranteed loan program. It's not a direct loan program. The lender has the money, SBA will offer a guarantee. And so the process of getting a 7A loan, you would actually, you don't come to SBA, we don't offer any pre-approved certificates that you take to the bank saying that we will guarantee the loan. You would actually go to the lender to start the process and submit an application to the lender. And the lender basically will underwrite the loan request, identify the risk. And if they're comfortable with the risk, whatever risk they identify, then they can do the loan without an SBA guarantee. If they're not comfortable with the risk that they identify, really instead of declining the loan request, they can use the SBA guarantee to mitigate or minimize the risk. And so if the lender decides they want to do the loan with an SBA guarantee, then the lender will connect with SBA to get that process started. But it is a loan that has to be repaid, and it's not a direct loan. It's not a disaster loan. And so I'm comparing the 7A loan with the COVID EIDL loan, and I went ahead and modified this, up to $500,000, because, like I said, initially, the maximum loan amount for the COVID EIDL was $150,000. And then we, increased it to $500,000. And so just recently, we increased it up to $2 million. So the maximum loan amount for the COVID EIDL is $2 million. Now we have two categories. We have guidelines for the COVID EIDL up to $500,000. And for the most part, we have our, I want to say different guidelines, but just a couple of items changed, for the COVID EIDL greater than $500,000 up to $2 million. And so I'll put emphasis on those when we go through this chart. But the maximum loan amount, for the 7A loan is $5 million. And so we guarantee a back loans up to $5 million. Now the maximum loan amount for the COVID EIDL loan up to $500,000 is $500,000 up to $500,000. And I'll go ahead and say, at this point, some of you may have applied for an EIDL loan and you were denied, as was stated on the front end. There is a reconsideration process in place. And again, we can work with you to see if you can meet those eligibility guidelines or overcome those denial reasons. So we'll work with you on that. So there's some hope for you.
Mr. Perkins, I have another interjection with a question, a really good question, because I don't know that I pinged you on this before today, but I do have someone that is asking about how to request an increase. So they got the EIDL last year or early at the top of this year before that before this was increased to 500,000 and subsequently 2 million. If we have enough time, would you also kind of explain to people who already have an EIDL if they are able to do that increase, and how, if we have enough time? And if we don't, then we could just share that information directly to the folks who asked it via email.
Yeah, I have actually have a slide, but
Okay.
essentially they would, if they have access to the portal, the way it's set up, if you apply for the very first time, you would go to sba.gov/disaster, and you apply for the EIDL loan, and you would go through their process, their loan intake information. And once you submit that, you should get an email from SBA prompting you to request access to the portal.
Okay.
And so once you got access to the portal and you receive your initial EIDL loan, then there should be a button within the portal that says request an increase or loan modification.
Okay.
So you can go through, you can log into your portal and request an increase through the portal. But if you're having problem accessing your portal, then you can send an email to COVID EIDL increase at sba.gov. And I have that information on a couple of slides.
Okay, cool.
So we'll just kind of go through this information because I feel I'm rehashing this information. I just want to point out the guidelines for the increase, more than 500,000 up to 2 million. And so I ensure that we get to those slides.
Okay.
Okay. So $2 million is the maximum loan amount for the COVID EIDL. Calculating the loan amount, that depends on the borrower's need or the purchase price. And I say, if you're purchasing equipment, then that dictates the loan amount you need. If you're purchasing real estate, that dictates the loan amount. Now, if you're getting working capital, that depends on how much you need in working capital. And so you would make that determination. The COVID EIDL, there's a set formula. And it's based on 2019 tax returns. And so you're taking your gross receipts minus cost of goods sold times 2 equals the loan amount. And I think I need to modify this because we're doing, for loans greater than $500,000. Well, no, that's still the same. I'm thinking about the cash flow analysis, assess your ability to repay the loan. But the loan amount for the COVID EIDL, the gross receipts minus cost of goods sold times 2 equals the loan amount. Okay, now you can accept the full loan amount, or you can accept the lower loan amount, and then you can come back and request an increase, up to $2 million. So this dictates how much you're eligible for. Now, if your gross receipts minus cost of goods sold times 2, is $300,000, then that's what you're eligible for. You can't apply for $2 million when you're eligible for $300,000.
And that's what's on your 2019 tax returns, just in case y'all missed that.
That's correct. And now if you the question you asked on the front end about someone received the EIDL, it was capped at $150,000. And so they received the max and they were eligible for, let's say, $500,000, but it was capped at $150,000. So they can request an increase to the $500,000. Okay. The max. So they can request an increase. And even if they were approved for initial $150,000 and they're eligible based on their 2019 tax return, they're eligible for $600,000-$700,000, they can request a increase. Now, you have to request the increase or a modification because you're only allowed to receive one EIDL loan. So you don't apply for a second EIDL loan. Okay. So if you have an existing EIDL loan, don't go through the process of applying for a new one because that's going to be, kicked out as a duplicate. And so you want to request an increase or loan modification. The amortization or the term of the loan for the 7A, it depends on the product. We allow the lenders to go up to 10 years for working capital. The lenders typically will amortize a working capital loan over 3 years because working capital is short-term in nature. If they decide to do that loan with an SBA guarantee, we'll allow them to go up to 10 years. And we'll allow the lenders to go up to 10 years on equipment. The lenders typically amortize an equipment loan over 5 years. Real estate, we allow the lenders to go up to 25 years. They typically will amortize a real estate loan over 15 years. And for the COVID EIDL, that's a set term, that's 30 years. And I'll say this, there's a 2-year deferment period where you don't have to make any payments for 2 years. At the end of 2 years, the loan amount is termed out over 28 years. So you have 28 years left because the 2-year deferment period is part of that 30 years. Okay. So at the end of 2 years, you have 28 years to repay the loan, which still, 28-year term, 3.75% interest rate. I mean, that's going to typically equate to a lower, monthly payment. And there's no prepayment penalties for the COVID EIDL loan, so you can reduce the principal balance during that 2-year period. If you want to, pay $1,000 on the principal balance or $5,000, that's going to reduce the principal balance at the end of 2 years, and then that's going to, further lower your monthly payment. The interest rate, I'll say the interest rate, on the 7A loan, that's something that's negotiated between the lender and the borrower. But typically lenders do risk-based pricing. If they're assuming all the risk, they're going to charge a higher interest rate. If they do the loan with an SBA guarantee, the purpose of the SBA guarantee is to mitigate or minimize risk. So we put a cap on the interest rate that the lender could charge. And so you can see the chart here, say for a $25,000 loan that's amortized less than 7 years, the maximum interest rate the lender could charge is prime plus 4.25. If the term was longer than 7 years, then the maximum is $25,000. The maximum interest rate the lender could charge is prime plus 4.75. And you can always negotiate a lower interest rate. The lender cannot charge more than the interest rate that's set by SBA. And there's a fixed rate equivalent for the 7A loan. That fixed rate equivalent is 8.25%, and it changes every month. So with a 7A loan, you can have a variable rate or a fixed rate. The COVID EIDL, that's a set interest rate, and it's 2.75%, 2.75% for nonprofits, and 3.75% for for-profit business. And that's regardless of the loan amount, up to $2 million. The collateral, the lender basically would take any collateral that's reflected on the balance sheet to include receivables, inventory, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, real estate, and some loans are done on an unsecured basis. And so SBA's position as far as collateral is concerned, if there's a shortfall in collateral, we won't deny our guarantee. We'll still offer our guarantee even though there's a shortfall in collateral. For the COVID EIDL loan up to $500,000, loans of $25,000 or less are done on an unsecured basis. Now, more than $25,000, we're basically taking a blanket lien on all business assets. We're doing a UCC filing. Now, here's the modification number 1 for COVID EIDL greater than $500,000 up to $2 million. We're still taking the blanket lien on all business assets or doing a UCC filing. And, we're seeking to take commercial real estate as collateral. Now, if it's available, now, if you don't own your commercial building or a commercial building, then, you're still eligible to receive funding, up to $2 million. But if there's some collateral, some commercial real estate that's available, then we're looking to take that commercial real estate. Now, we're not going to take a second on the house. We're not going to take any residential real estate. Now, well, we're not going to take your primary residence, but we will take, if the business owns some residential rental property, we may consider that as collateral, but really we're looking for commercial real estate that's owned by the business,
for collateral.
And that's owned by the business. And it doesn't necessarily have to be it's not necessarily limited to the owner occupied real estate. The business could own several commercial buildings. So we're just looking to take any commercial real estate that's available. So that's the modification number one for the COVID. And I want to emphasize, we're looking to take commercial real estate if it's available. So if you don't have any commercial real estate, you're still eligible for the EIDL loan up to $2 million.
Okay.
Ability to repay, the lender under the 7A loan program, they're going to do a cash flow analysis assessing your ability to repay the loan. And they typically going to request 3 years of personal tax returns, 3 years of business tax returns. They're going to pull your personal credit report on all owners that own 20% or more of the business. And so they're trying to see if you have sufficient cash flow to pay the new loan and to pay your personal debt and to pay your business debt. And really they want cash flow left over. So typically, they want some cushion, say, for example, you have $50,000 in annual debt payments. Okay, so your debt payments total $50,000 for the year. And then your cash flow is $50,000 for the year. And so they put it in the form of a ratio that's 50,000 divided by 50,000. And so that's 1-to-1 coverage. And so that's break even. They don't want 1-to-1 coverage. They don't want break even. They want a little cushion. And so typically they would want to see, say $60,000 in cash flow to the $50,000 in debt service. And I think that ratio comes out to 1.2 or 1.25. And so they typically want to see, from a ratio standpoint, they typically want to see a 1.25 or 1.3.
And Mr. Perkins, I have a really good question to this point from one of our Zoom business owners, Ms. Nikisha. She asked, is it best to go through a CPA to apply or to go directly to the SBA? And I want to frame that under the caveat of what Mr. Perkins is describing right now, which is really understanding where your business is, understanding what the cash flow of your business is, having the ability to produce a cash flow statement and being able to speak to your debt to income ratio. If you are doing this on your own and you don't understand those things, then it is best to seek out a professional that can explain that to you. But you do not have to have someone apply for the EIDL. You do that directly to the SBA. For the 7A, as Mr. Perkins said, you're going to be going directly and working with the bank to apply. But just to provide that clarification and where TMB Tax and Financial Services stands and my new nonprofit access granted is it could be best for you to make sure that you speak to a professional to understand where your business is. And especially if you've been denied. If you've been denied an EIDL loan and you don't understand why, if it had something to do with your debt to income ratio for a 7A loan, or just deny it in any instance, if you're not able to produce the numbers that are required in some of these applications, that's when it's highly recommended that you work with a professional to help you understand that, so that you can make subsequent decisions on just making your application stronger. So I hope that helps, Nikisha.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I don't want to downplay CPAs or tax professionals. I better not downplay. I better not.
We might have some technical difficulties. Hang on.
But for the EIDL loan, all you need.
Yeah, it's not required at all.
2019 tax returns.
Right.
And complete a 4506T. And I have a sample, and I need to speed this up. I have a sample of a 4506T included.
Yeah.
That's really what you need to submit the application. Now, SBA could come back and require some additional documentation. But you go through your CPA. They prepare. And they may be knowledgeable of cash flow analysis and debt income, but they prepare financial statements, and all you really need to do is request copies of your financial statements from your CPA. Now, as far as the 7A loan is concerned, that's where relationship banking comes in. You want to have a relationship with a banker, that you could, you can have honest conversation with, and someone that's going to help you. Now,
that's true. Yeah.
You want to have a relationship with not necessarily just a relationship with a banker, but a banker that really operates in your best interest. That's going to be proactive and identify, the needs that you have, that because you're operating your business and you're not a financial professional. You're not focusing on the finances day in and day out. I mean, you're operating your business, you're selling widgets or whatever you're doing.
Right.
And so you want to, seek out a professional, a banker. They're not going to charge you. That's why you want somebody that you can call at 9 o'clock at night that will answer the phone. And so you want to, have a relationship with a quote unquote a good banker, someone that operates in your best interest. And they will be glad to share information. They're going to tell you exactly what you need for the 7A loan. I mean, essentially 3 years of personal tax returns, 3 years of business tax returns, updated personal financial statement. That's essentially, I mean, if you're purchasing equipment, you want a purchase agreement, you're purchasing real estate, a purchase agreement. But for the most part, they're going to tell you exactly what you need, when you apply for a 7A loan. And then our resource partners, the small business development centers, they're here to help you. And, they'll help you prepare a loan packet, or at least tell you what the bank is looking for, before you go to a bank. But, you want to seek out a professional, but I wouldn't necessarily advise paying someone, to apply.
Unless you need some work done. I mean,
unless you need some work done.
I was like, wait a minute now.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, if you need, and this is the thing that I think the other piece of this too, Rod, and it goes back to what I was saying about some of the posts that I'm seeing, on IG and in some of the Facebook groups where there's these individuals that are saying, for this amount, we'll do this. This is a very loaded question, you know what I mean? And answer, because it could hit on several different scales. But the biggest piece, just, obviously to save time, is if you have no clue what's going on, then you definitely want to seek a professional, whether that be a banker, your SBDC, any other nonprofit or whatever. But if you do need some work done, as far as you never filed taxes, you don't have your 2019 or 3 years or whatever, then those individuals are going to refer you to someone who can get that service done if they don't do it themselves. Okay. Exactly. So I kind of, yeah. So, I interjected a little bit on there. And like I said, y'all, we can definitely do a marathon together on these topics. The other thing that I wanted to ask, I know that you'll get through it in this piece, but just in the interest of time, and I see a question on IG. So we've found, and even in you how you've explained it, there are several layers, right, of the COVID EIDL. And when I say layers, meaning, obviously there's the EIDL loan application, and then the subsequent targeted EIDL grant, and then the subsequent, supplemental grant. As it relates to the main loan, as you have it broken down here in these columns, as it relates to the collateral, the cash flow, use of proceeds, and repayment, what is the eligibility specifically for the main loan? Like we talked about it, but I want to make sure that people get this. You had said that, for the EIDL loan, what the business owner needs is that 2019 tax return, because that's what the eligibility amount is going to be based on. But I know in experience in helping people apply for the EIDL loan that there are also going to be questions asked about what your 2020 numbers were, right, as far as the gross receipts piece, and even into 2021. For the main COVID EIDL loan, is there a reduction in gross receipt present for your EIDL loan to be approved, since you're starting from that 2019 tax return?
is there a reduction in gross
Yeah, like
receipts?
you know how,
The
and what I'm
20%?
asking, like for the targeted EIDL advance, in order for you to get that, you have to have the 30%. For the supplemental, you have to have the 50% reduction. So for the actual loan, right, is
Yeah.
there a reduction required for the actual loan piece, not the
No.
grant sub level?
No, there's no reduction required, and there's really no comparison of say 2019 and 2020 or 2018 and 2019. So the numbers, the loan amount is a set loan amount based on that formula.
Okay.
Gross receipts minus cost of goods sold times 2. So that's kind of set in stone.
Okay.
And there's no reduction in gross receipts requirement as part of the COVID EIDL loan program.
I'm glad you clarified that, because you have business owners who haven't received a loss, or who haven't experienced a loss. I mean, when it comes to 19 versus 20, but who absolutely, could use a cash flow injection during these times, as we still experience the pandemic changes that business owners go through right now. So I'm glad that you clarified, because it gets a little cloudy, with the different levels. So just so everybody got that, because this is really good, especially for people who have not experienced a loss. And Mr. Perkins said that there is no comparison from the main loan piece as it relates to your particular numbers. But for the grants, that's where you have to have shown for that loss, for the targeted EIDL 30%, supplemental 50%. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I'll say this, I mean, you have to be a legitimate business, but my point is, there's no, dollar amount, there's no revenue amount or sales amount really too small. If you are a legitimate business. Now, I was looking at a tax return on yesterday, and we're looking at the gross, basically we're looking at the gross number. We're not looking at the net income or the net loss. I mean, you could have experienced and actually I did see a tax return where the business, experienced a loss more than $100,000. But they were still eligible for the loan, a large loan at that, because it's based on the gross,
on the gross,
not the net.
Yeah.
And I looked at a tax return on yesterday where the business owner, it was a legitimate business, they gross $18,000. It had zero cost of goods sold, but their bottom line was it was zero.
Right.
So they kind of broke even.
Right.
And, I kind of raised the eyebrow at that, how do you break even? But anyway.
Zero to the point.
But it's zero to the point. Okay. But anyway, so in that case, and I'm not the one to evaluate, this information. I just happen to notice that tax return, they gross 18,000. And so that meant that their gross receipts, 18,000 minus cost of goods sold is zero times 2.
Right.
That's the amount that they're eligible for, even though they show zero break even.
Right. I hope y'all picking up on this, because I must say that, of all the webinars, whatever that I've been to as it relates to EIDL, because people have been so focused on the grant piece, it has been lost there as to that original loan piece, the first step, so to speak. If we say steps, the first step, and then also the fact that it starts with that 2019 tax return. So I hope y'all are picking up on these jewels that Mr. Perkins is carving. We're carving out for you, so you catch that. And also the other pieces of reconsideration. I know that we have some folks watching that have been denied before. You have your EIDL denial letter for whatever reason it says. I hope that the information you're hearing is helping you in the sense of emailing back on that reconsideration. And then also, if you got or you were approved an EIDL loan, you have one, but it was capped at $150,000. And you know that you would qualify based on what we went over today, you would qualify still for more. Then Mr. Perkins has also explained how you can request that increase because you can only have one outstanding EIDL loan. So you won't reapply and try to create a second loan. You're going to simply request an increase and a modification of your existing loan.
Okay, perfect. Let me get through this.
Okay.
Because I'm feeling we're approaching that time limit, but and so ability to repay, the bank want 3 years of financials. They're going to set your ability to repay the loan. Now with the COVID EIDL up to $500,000, if your beacon score is 570 or above, then that means that you have the ability to repay the loan according to SBA guideline. There's no formalized cash flow analysis done. So if you got a 570 beacon score and you got some gross receipts and, then you're eligible for a loan. Now, the increase, from 500,000 to 2 million, we increased the maximum beacon score to 625. And SBA will do a cash flow analysis, for loans amounts greater than $500,000. So we will do a cash flow analysis. Guarantors, 20% or more owners must serve as a guarantor on the 7A loan. The COVID EIDL, no guarantors for loans up to $200,000. So any amount above $200,000, all 20% or more owners must serve as a guarantor. The use of proceeds, really, I just say with the 7A, any business purpose, with the EIDL up to $500,000, to meet your working capital or normal operating expenses. And I got some examples here, rent and utilities. And now we've added, for loans, above $500,000 to $2 million, you can also use the proceeds to make debt payments. Now you can't pay a loan off, but you can make monthly debt payments. And so, we're talking about you getting a EIDL loan and the money, the entire loan amount is placed in your business operating account. And you have 2 years before you make the first payment. And even when you start making payments, that loan will be amortized over 28 years at 3.75%. So you're going to have a relatively low monthly payment. And hopefully you weather the storm. And we don't know where this pandemic is going to take us.
Right.
Hopefully you weather the storm and we have a better business climate. And so I think this is you can make payments, even on federal debt. You can make the monthly payments, but you can't pay the loan off.
Okay.
So if you have a commercial building, with a $500,000 mortgage, let's say you're paying $3,000 a month, and you're eligible for a $700,000 EIDL loan, so that entire $700,000 will be deposited in your operating account, and you can make the monthly make those $3,000 monthly payments for 24 months, for 2 years. Yeah, and that's going to help, preserve some cash flow for you.
Absolutely.
And the repayment, as I stated, 24 months, and after that, you're going to make, monthly P&I payments based on a 28-year term or 28-year amortization. And that hadn't changed under the COVID increase up to $2 million. Forgivable loans, none of these loans are forgivable. I mean, you have to pay the PPP was the only forgivable loan. And so you have to repay this money. The guarantee, with the 7A loan, the guarantee ranges anywhere from 50% to 90% because we partner with the banks. The banks have the money and we offer our guarantee. With the EIDL, it's a direct loan from SBA, no lender involved in the process. And then there's no prepayment penalty for the EIDL loan. So you can, within that 2-year deferment period, you can make payments to reduce the principal balance if you want to further lower your monthly payment after the 2-year period, but there's no prepayment penalty. Calculating the loan eligibility, as I stated, gross receipts minus cost of goods sold. And so you can see the line items, on the Schedule C, line 1, gross receipts, and minus line 4 cost of goods sold. Now, the only difference, each, your Schedule C, now your Schedule F, which is for farmers, they're going to have a different line item. Line 9 for the gross receipts, and they don't have cost of goods sold. So they have to subtract line 33. They're basically their expenses. And that would be the same for a nonprofit entity. So we're taking line 12 minus line 18. So I just wanted to point that out. And so you should be able to, if you need help identifying, your gross receipts and your cost of goods sold, and if you have zero, we're here to help you. If you have zero as part of cost of goods sold, then that's zero. That's gross receipts minus 0 times 2. Okay, so don't get alarmed, don't get shocked and say, well, I don't have any gross receipts, so what do I do? You just zero. Okay. We kind of talked about this, the new loan. If you're applying for a new loan, you go to SBA.gov/disaster, and you do an intake form, which is basically the application. And once you hit submit, you're going to receive an email invite from SBA, with a username and password to give you access to the portal. And then once you have access to the portal, you can check on the status of your loan. You can upload documents in that portal. And then, as I mentioned, the loan amount for increase, we're only allowing one EIDL loan. And so we're allowing, what we call loan modifications or loan increases. And so to request an increase, you basically log into the portal and you do a loan modification. Now, if you don't have access to the portal, you can email COVID EIDL increase request with an S at SBA.gov. And you want to identify your application number and the name of the business. So you want to have relevant identifiable information and just let them know that you're requesting an increase. The timelines, for getting an SBA loan, less than $500,000, is really, 2 to 3 weeks, but it varies depending on the information that's needed. And as I stated, SBA on the front end, we do a identity verification check. If we don't get sufficient information to help us identify, to verify your identity, then we'll come back to you requesting, additional information. So it depends, if you submit a good packet and everything goes through well, it could be 2 to 3 weeks before you get funded. Now, $500,000, more than $500,000, and it's been stated that, the approval process will take 45 days for loans more than $500,000. Now, I don't know if that's a maximum or you can be approved within 45 days, but it's typically going to take a little longer, for loans more than $500,000 because we got real estate involved, we got a cash flow analysis involved. But, several weeks, I just say several weeks. Loans greater than $500,000. Now, you can go through the process. Now, we're not going to approve any loans of $500,000 to $2 million prior to October 8th. But you still can submit your application, for a loan more than $500,000, but we're not going to approve any loans prior to October 8th. Okay.
And that's because, we're just that preference to the smaller loans. In theory, smaller businesses, smaller loan eligibility amounts is I believe what that intention is about, to try to give some type of, as they say, exclusivity to our smaller businesses.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the 1.5 months, about 45 days
Mm-hmm.
or several weeks. I'll just say several weeks. So what documentation do I need? We kind of talked about this, the loan amount is based on your 2019 tax returns. Now, if you started January the 1st, between January the 1st and January 31st of 2020, then we'll want to see 2020 tax returns or, some year-to-date or year-end profit and loss statement and the balance sheet. Now, the legal structure, the forms that you provide will vary depending on your legal structure. Now, if you're a sole proprietor, you complete a Schedule C. Now, you have to provide the entire 1040, Form 1040, which will incorporate the Schedule C. And all of that will be identified on the 4506T. You have to identify that on the 4506T, which we'll talk about that in just a second. The S Corp return, that's your 1120S, the C Corp return, your 1120, partnership, 1065, and your nonprofit, the 990. Now, I've seen some folks that, they may have been a sole proprietor in 2019, and then they changed their legal structure to, let's say, a partnership in 2020. And when they did, they completed the 4506T, they put 1065 partnership, which is incorrect. It has to match the 2019, whatever your legal structure was in 2019, it has to match. And the address has to match. So it has to match.
On the tax return.
Yeah, on the tax return, the 4506T. And we'll talk about that in just a second.
Mr. Perkins, I have another good question. I'm sorry. And we did already ask this, but answer this, but I want to ask it again. So we have another person on the call, Miss Kimberly, was asking, how do you do a reconsideration for the targeted EIDL that was denied due to location?
Well, you would send an email address to, I think it's targeted EIDL reconsideration.
And that will be on your letter. Yep.
It will be on your letter, on your denial letter. So you basically send an email to them, with justification. You just send an email, a reconsideration email.
And then Kimberly, if you joined us afterwards, the other thing that Mr. Perkins said, because we also had an IG question that said he actually said, I think it was either 4 feet or 4 miles, from the low income community line on that SBA map. And so if you missed that discussion where we were talking about that, Mr. Perkins was saying that, we're not sure what the leeway is for the SBA, but you could just always try and do that reconsideration, and go with whatever you get back in response to that. But I think in any case, with everything that Mr. Perkins is going over, if you've been denied and you believe there's something that you missed up on in submitting or whatever, choose to do the reconsideration process. Nothing beats a failure but a try, to just simply ask, hey, can you explain it to me? Like, what did what's the information that I need in that reconsideration email, so that you can be reevaluated to see if you would be able to get approved. Perfect.
Do you mind if I kind of push ahead? I wanted to, and we can come back. Now there's the schedule of liabilities form, the SBA form 2202. Well, let me back up. Let me back up. Okay, so if you're not a sole proprietor, after closing, but before closing, you're going to need the board resolution or certificate of authority, as we call it, basically identifying the people who have the authority to act on behalf of the company in providing documentation to SBA. Now, there's a form, ODA form P-022, that's Office of Disaster Assistance. You may be required to complete that form and upload that to in your portal. But that's basically authorized, so you give an authorization for certain members of your organization to conduct business with SBA. For loans greater than $500,000, in addition to the document for less than $500,000, that's where this form 2202 schedule liabilities. That's a required form for loans more than $500,000. And then we talked about taking real estate as collateral. You need to have a list of real estate owned, and then a personal financial statement for all owners of 20% or more of the business. And then SBA could come back, and ask for additional information, copies of your driver's license. That's just to verify your identity or current year-to-date P&L, profit and loss statement. And then even for loans of less than $500,000, we could come back and ask for a schedule of liabilities. Now, the schedule of liability is a requirement for loans more than $500,000. But, you know, again, for loans less than $500,000, we could come back and ask for a schedule of liabilities. And this,
I got another good question. Sorry. And we covered this on the last webinar, but I want to go over it again. You touched on it at the top of the webinar. So this goes back to the documents needed in the 4506T, as well as the tax returns. So, you know, obviously we have business owners that may not have filed 2019 before, or during the process of reconsideration, or for whatever reason, they have to amend their tax return. And I asked, and again, you probably gonna already smile because you know I asked you this a million different ways on Sunday. But I gotta ask it again because I'm seeing a person that I know is relevant, is totally relevant to. So for those 2019 tax returns that an amendment has been filed, whether it's e-filed or whether it's paper filed, but it has been sent to the IRS, and the IRS is still processing it. So when they go in, they check their transcript, or they check, you know, tracking tax return, where's my refund, whatever, it's showing that there is no tax return filed, but the client absolutely, well, we're looking at the fact that it was accepted. Is it that they just simply have to wait until the IRS has finished processing that tax return? Or is there, in that reconsideration process, where they're simply providing you with that tax return as well as documentation, whether it be the e-file submission ID, you know, or a return receipt, whatever, to show, hey, I have sent this 2019 tax return in, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know what's taking the IRS so long. You know, what has been the procedure for that?
well, that's a tough question.
I know.
Because, you know, the purpose of the 4506T is to allow SBA to pull those transcripts. If their phone's ringing.
Right.
Well, I got my personal phone and I got my work cell phone, and they're both ringing. But anyway,
popular man.
But anyway, you know, the purpose of the 4506T is to allow SBA to pull transcript directly from the Internal Revenue Service. Now, you know, if there was if you extended your 2019 tax returns, and, you know, we try to pull a transcript and it shows zero or nothing, then I don't know if we have a workaround for that situation. And then, you know, if you do an amended 2019 tax returns, and I received some amended tax returns where they went to the IRS and they stamped, the IRS, you know, provided a stamp. You know, but still, you know, we have to have a 4506T. It has to be for the amended tax return, because the amended tax returns will have transcripts that may be different than the regular 2019 tax returns. And so we still have to verify the amended tax returns. And so we require a new 4506T. And we want those transcripts coming directly, you know, from the IRS to SBA now, because a business owner can request a copy of their transcripts.
Right. Absolutely.
You know, and so I don't know if we have a workaround. You know, I know there's a backlog with the IRS. And so, you know, I know business owners, you know, they're thinking, you know, the money's going to run out, but it's going to be December 31st. I hadn't heard anything from the IRS, and then I just lost out on the opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, I know SBA is in communication with the Internal Revenue Service. So I don't know what the result of that communication is in terms of, you know, in terms of them developing a workaround. And still, you know, if you provide an extended if you did an extension on your 2019, you know, most folks say, well, it's 2021, you should have your 2019. But if you did an extension on your 2019 and you provided some, you know, year-end internal numbers or CPA compilations, then, you know, I don't think that's going to work, because we need to verify that information that you submitted, and we use the tax transcript to verify that information.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I resolved in my head. Obviously, having worked for the federal government and stuff is so cookie cutter. You know what I mean? It's just not a lot of nuances and wiggle room that you can have with stuff like that, especially with taxes, and especially with the fact that, you know, we are suffering from an environment where people have made up numbers. So
yeah,
obviously this is just,
and that's what I was going to. That's what I was going to say. You can go online and get a fillable PDF, and you can have your nice tax return.
Exactly. So this is the federal government's response to the fact that people have in PPP or wherever else, you know, just totally made up numbers, and so now it has to be by the book. And so that's what I believe too. But I did want to address that, just because I know that there are several folks who are in that current predicament. Like right now, they're literally waiting on the IRS to show some type of indication that they have processed their tax return. So, yeah.
And so I think, you know, we just have to wait, you know.
Gotta wait.
And hopefully the IRS is, and I'm pretty sure they're working, you know, overtime, you know, to process these requests. And so that brings us to this 4506T. And, you know, you want to, and a couple of things that could, the 4506T could be rejected, or if it's submitted to the IRS erroneously, that would further delay the process. And so just the key points, you know, you want to have your name, you know, name of the business, you know, or if you did a 1040, then you would have to provide your, I mean, if you operate as a Schedule C as a sole proprietor, or Schedule F farmer, then you would have to provide your 1040. And so you have your name listed here, and, you know, joint, if you file a joint tax return, you know, name of your spouse and the current address, and that address, you know, it has to be, this is based on 2019 tax returns. So this really has to match the 2019 tax return. Number 4,
right.
Yeah. And so this is, you know, the recipient of the tax transcript, SBA. And notice this transcript says disaster. It's 4506T, I'm sorry, it says disaster.
Okay.
So this is pre-filled with the SBA information. And then if you know, requesting an increase, and you have an application number, so you request an increase, so that means you already have an EIDL loan. And so you have to include your application number on this line item here.
Okay.
Now, if you applying for EIDL for the very first time, then this line item will be blank. Okay.
Very good information.
This, you know, transcript, this is important. And I looked at a case, you know, today, and let me say this, you know, for those of you who, you know, have worked, you know, who applied for EIDL already, and you're going through a challenging process, you know, the EIDL program has been placed under new leadership. It's been placed on the Office of Capital Access. And so as a result of that, I now have access to the system. And so, you know, a lot of calls are being redirected to the local office. And so we're working with clients, and I would say on average, you know, I work, you know, anywhere from 4 to 6 cases per day. And I don't want to sound insensitive by calling them cases, but I work with 4 to 5 or 6 business owners each day trying to address their issue. And so, and this is an issue here, you know, you got to know your legal structure. And as I stated, if you're a sole proprietor or a Schedule F filer farmer, then you're requesting the tax transcripts for your 1040.
Right.
Okay. And so that your 1040 would include the Schedule C and the Schedule F. Now, if you're a partnership, it should be 1065, not 1040. And I got a case where they put, the individual put, he was a partnership, but he put 1040, which is incorrect. So if you're a corporation, you want to put 1120. If you're an S Corp, you want to put 1120S. Or if you're a nonprofit, you want to do your 990. And so you identify the form there, and you want to go to 6C, record of account. You want to check that box, 6C. Now, if you're, and I got here, check 6C, unless you filed a 990 or 1041, you check 6B. So if you're a nonprofit, you want to check 6B. Everyone else, you check 6C.
And this is, let me just say this is, I'll probably carve this piece out and make it a whole separate video in itself to make sure that people get this, because this is one-on-one customized knowledge here. Because having dealt with the IRS for as long as I have, they absolutely will kick these forms right on out if it's not exactly how it's saying here. You understand? And that will delay everything. So please make sure, whether it be the replay, whatever, make sure you drill in on this part of our video where he's going through this, because this is priceless information. Trust me, if you don't do it this way, it absolutely will delay. The IRS will kick it out with no problem. And it will delay the SBA getting the transcript that they need to approve your EIDL loan.
Yeah, and so line 7 is not applicable, line 8 is not applicable, and then this information will be automatically filled in by SBA. Now, I think, once you submit your application for an EIDL loan, then we prompt you to complete, a fillable 4506T.
Yes.
And so this information is automatically filled in. And then if you request an increase, then you're gonna have to do a new 4506T. And I don't know if you're gonna be able to do that online or not, but you want to make sure you have the correct form.
Okay.
And then you want to check this box, and then you want to have an authorized person to sign. And so you have to sign it, and I think we're taking electronic signatures. So you check this box and you want to sign it. And so that's essentially the 4506T. And, the errors, the address doesn't match.
Yeah.
You're able to kick back, and then you have the wrong form indicated here. And if you're a partnership and you put 1040, then obviously, the IRS is going to send a transcript back with nothing.
Yeah, right.
If
they process it out.
If they process, they probably kick it back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably kick it back.
Yeah.
So that's the 4506T. I'm not sure how much time we have. And this is the resolution or certification form, which you identify individuals that are authorized to conduct business with SBA. And so you identify those individuals here, and then you sign. Now you can use this form, the ODA form P-022. And SBA may request, and when you have, unverifiable information, this may be one of the forms that they request. We're going to talk about that in just a second.
And this is even if you're a sole proprietor or if you've indicated another business entity type.
Yeah.
Is this for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And now, we're at the Q&A, and, we've had a lot of questions and we had a lot of answers. So, and this is kind of a repeat, a reinforcer or certain information we talked about. Can I apply for additional loan funds if I already received a loan through the COVID EIDL? The answer is yes. So you can apply for a maximum of $2 million. Now, if you receive, let's say you applied during the first round, and you received $150,000, which was the max, and you were eligible for, $500,000. So you want to come back and request an increase. Now you're not gonna get 500,000. You're gonna get the difference between 500,000 and the amount you already received. So you're gonna get what's that? 350,000 for a total of $500,000. And we talked about. Go ahead.
I have a more so of a statement, but I definitely want to address it. Have an SBA person address it. Ms. Gwendolyn Dixon, I see your comment. She says the information has to be extremely detailed. They want all the information you can give to support your reconsideration documents. The portal has been delayed, and she has been advised to send everything via email. Is there anything that you necessarily want to say on that? Because someone else may have the same experience or.
Well, I don't have clarification on this, but I'm thinking, business owners, they have access to the portal, which means that they have the ability to upload documents. Yeah,
that's certainly been the case in the clients that I've helped, but perhaps in Gwendolyn's case, for whatever reason, that she and Krishan, I know you're on here as well. There have certainly been instances, I think, Joe, there have certainly been instances where people have been asked to email documents, versus going within the portal. So like I said, it probably just depends on who processes it. But the main reason why I wanted to address Gwendolyn's issue and kind of just bring it out to the light with an SBA rep on here, to me, all that matters is you having the patience to do what you need to do to get that information in there. You know what I'm saying? Like, regardless of, because sometimes the portals, this is everywhere, but sometimes stuff works and it's working properly that day. Sometimes whoever's processing your loan is saying email it. Thank you, Krishan, for clarifying it. I thought you had to email something at one point in time. But what you want to just try to do is upload it into the portal. But for whatever reason, if you don't have access to the portal, just make sure that you're responding to these email addresses that you see, you see Mr. Perkins having on here, and not some spoofed email or anything like that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And I'm glad she made that observation or asked that question. And I'll say that it is a process. SBA is getting thousands and thousands of emails with attachments. And so if you send an email today, Wednesday, to SBA with attachments, it's probably not a good idea to call SBA the next day to see if they receive. So it's a process. It may take a week for them to get that email, to download documents and to upload documents into the system. So it's a process. Now, I will say this, you can call me.
Look, did you see how delayed?
You can email me. Now, I can, but not email me every hour or every day. I could check the system to see if the documents, are reflected in the system, since I have access. And again, I'm looking to work with you. I know these are challenging times for you. And so I'm looking to work with you and to help you any way I can. And I've uploaded documents, but I don't, I'm not going to request that you send me documents, because I don't want to receive your tax returns and, your canceled check with your routing number. Right. I don't want to, and I've had people to send me that email with that information. And so, because of privacy and confidentiality issues, I'm not looking to ask you to send me that kind of information.
Right. So we want to try to keep it to the portal. And Gwendolyn also, I think she probably just joined us on the workarounds to the 4506T. There aren't any. I mean, we spent probably 5 minutes on that, and I'm just gonna make it real quick for you. Unfortunately, there aren't any. And I know I'm smiling and laughing, but really and truly, I know it's frustrating. But we know the IRS is behind on stuff. But I asked that question to Mr. Perkins, and pretty much the answer was there aren't really any workarounds. And so therefore, if you hadn't filled that 4506T out the way that that Mr. Perkins just broke it down for us in the previous slide, you know, go back and double check to see how you filled it out. You know, because that could be the holdup. The IRS processing your 2019 could be the holdup. The point that I want to make with that is, and that's really just the goal of us having Mr. Perkins here, because we know that, you know, everyone's situation is customized, and that while he is a representative of the Alabama District SBA office, he certainly can't have all the answers for the entire administration. But what we're doing is we are exposing you to some really behind the curtain information that you don't just get with a Google search, so that you can use that information to work through your application, or just to identify what could have been hanging you up in you know, in your process. And that's what we're all about, exposing you to the information, and empowering you to be able to use this information to get the needed capital for your business. I know that we've gone over, we still have people on the live for Facebook, and we still have people on Zoom, Mr. Perkins. So I know you probably have a few more slides left. I'm gonna let you go ahead and go over those because people hadn't left us yet. And if it's anything else that you guys want him to cover, just let me know, and we'll try to get him back. But we have definitely revealed and explained and drilled down into some really good topics. And I'll rehash them in post just in case you missed it. You know, as it relates to some major gems, I feel like we have unearthed in this discussion today. But yes, let's if you have some more slides, I'm gonna go ahead and give you the mic again, and take it on home. Because
I have a couple more slides.
Okay.
Just a couple things on the 4506T and the workaround. You know, we're very creative, and so
Yeah.
you know, one of the you know, suggested workarounds was for the business owner to pull their own tax transcripts,
Yeah.
and email it to SBA. And I don't think that's going to work, because we want to get those transcripts, as I stated earlier, directly from the Internal Revenue Service. And then there's another, I don't know if this was a rumor that was spread, that the stamped tax return, the IRS stamped tax returns could be used in lieu of the transcripts. Now, I haven't, you know, I don't think that's the case, but I sent the email up the chain just to verify that, because, you know, it's just the stamped transcript, you know, that means that only means to me that the IRS has received your tax return. They have not, you know, processed the tax returns.
Right.
And so that's why we need that verification, you know, through transcripts directly from the Internal Revenue Service. So I wanted to point that out. And a couple of things I want to point out, and that kind of leads into this next question: how do I request an increase? And we talked about that, you know, going through the portal and clicking on the blue button that says request an increase. That's if you already received an EIDL loan. Now, if you don't have access to the portal, there's the email address you can use: COVID EIDL increase request with an S at SBA.gov, and it offers some pointers. You know, use the subject line EIDL request, you know, for your application number, input your application number. And then it says, make sure you know, include in the body of your email identifying information for the current loan, you know, loan number, business name, business address, business owner names, and phone number. Now, it also says, make this one important bullet point, you know, do not include financial documents or tax records with your initial request. Because I think with the increase request, you know, we already have the 2019 tax return. Yeah. We should already have the transcripts. So we should already have, you know, documentation. Now, if you're requesting, you know, a loan amount more than $500,000, I mean, we're going to respond back, let you know what we need, what documentation we need. And then they may say, you know, upload it to the portal, or they may say send an email. Yeah. With attachments. So I want to point that out.
Okay.
How is the deferment period handled on an increase? Now, as I stated, we're not going to allow you to have, you can only have one EIDL loan.
Okay.
So if you request an increase, now that one EIDL, I know initially, we were allowing a 12-month deferment period, and then we increased that to 24 months. Okay, and so that's based on the original date of the original EIDL loan. So if you get an increase, you're still operating on that 24 months, and it's not from the date. A new 24 months from the date you get the increase, but
that's a good clarification.
Yeah, it's the 24
that's a
months
good clarification. Okay.
From the original approval.
So if it's been, which I don't know if it's even possible just because of the timing of everything, but I'll ask it anyway. If it has in fact matured and they're required to be making payments and then they request an increase, is that possible? Does that reset everything, or there hasn't been enough time in between the initial sort of EIDL and then now where they can request the increase? Is that not possible?
I don't think we have any EIDL loans that are in a payment status.
Yeah, I don't think it's been a year yet, but I just felt like I'd ask that just because I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's a good question. I know initially, we offered a 12-month deferment period.
Yeah.
And then, at some point we extended that to 24 months. So I'm not sure if we have any EIDLs in a repayment status. And I'll take a look at that. I'll research that.
Okay.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Now they can, they can request an increase. If they're eligible, they can request an increase. But I'll take a look at that.
Okay.
Get some clarification on that. Personal guarantees, this one's pretty straightforward. For loans greater than $200,000, they require a personal guarantee of anyone that owns 20% or more of the business.
Which basically means the business owner's personal credit. That's right. Can you clarify what personal guarantee means?
Well, that means that if the business defaults on the loan, then you're liable personally for repayment of the loan. So, I mean, if you're a sole proprietor, then, it's all the same, there's no difference between you and the business. But if you're a, partnership or a corporation, and then you own more than 20% of the business,
right?
If the business defaults on the loan or can't repay the loan for whatever reason, then it becomes your responsibility.
And both people are on the application, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Collateral and fees, as I stated, for loans greater than $25,000, there's no collateral for loans up to $25,000. And for loans more than $25,000, we're basically going to take a blanket lien on all business asset, do a UCC filing, and then there's a one-time $100 fee for the UCC filing. For loans greater than $500,000, as I stated, at the onset, we're still going to take that UCC filing. We're still going to take a blanket lien on all business assets. And, we will seek to take any commercial real estate, commercial real estate, if available. And I want to go ahead and say that, if available. If it's not available, if you don't have any commercial real estate, then obviously we can't take it. And that doesn't mean that you're not eligible. You're still eligible to apply for a loan up to $2 million, but we're just going to take a blanket lien on all business assets. And again, we're not looking to take a second on the house or a first on the house. We're not looking to take, your primary residence as collateral. Now, if the business owns rental residential property, I mean, we'll consider taking that as collateral. Yeah. And I think,
here's that 45016 again.
Yeah. And this may have to be our last slide because I don't know. I think we talked about it. It says I submitted my 4506T. How long will it take for SBA to get my tax returns or your tax transcripts?
Mhm.
Uh, now I don't know the date, and I copy these Q&As from SBA. So this is not, you know, by wording. You know, the average wait, and I'm gonna read it. You know, the average wait time for the IRS to send tax transcripts to SBA after an applicant has submitted the 4506T is currently 1 week.
Mhm.
Now, and it says prior to July the 1st, there's a significant backlog that may have caused applicants to wait longer, but the backlog has been cleared. Note that errors on the IRS 4506T can lead to increased wait time. Now, I don't know, to be honest with you, it says a week here. I really don't know how long that process takes. You know, I imagine there's, you know, according to this, it says the backlog has been cleared. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but you know, and I don't have an answer. And this is the question, and that's the answer that was provided on SBA's, you know, Q&A. And so I imagine it's taking longer than a week. But if everything is correct on the 4506T and you submit that, now, if I'm not mistaken, you know, if you do it electronically through SBA, and then once you submit, I think that automatically goes to the IRS. And so it could be a week, you know, or a couple
if it's
weeks.
there. And I think, and I was chuckling just because I'm like, okay, don't get in trouble, Taliba. You know, I have to always say these things in my mind. Don't get in trouble. But I think this really is applicable for if, you know, you already have your 2019, you know, your 2019 tax return was processed, and, you know, you filled out that 4506T correctly, right? So it sounds like there's an automated process there where this, you know, this could absolutely be the reality. So if this is not the reality for you, it could be whether, you know, you could be in that other area that we talked about earlier as it relates to perhaps some errors on the 4506T, or the IRS has not processed your 2019 tax return yet. So that in that case is probably why it has been a longer process.
Yeah. And that kind of leads us into this next question. Why have I received repeated requests for IRS 4506T? You know, basically, if you got incorrect information, if you got errors, then, you know, the 4506T will be rejected, and then you have to submit a new 4506T with the correct information. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. And the most common mistakes, you know, you have an incorrect EIN or social security number, or incorrect address, or incorrect tax year, or you can request the wrong form, you know, 1040 versus.
And Ron, I have a question. I don't know if you know, because I haven't experienced this with any clients either, but just in my experience on filling out other forms with the IRS, do you know if there are errors with the 4506T, if the IRS is actually mailing those kickback reasons to the applicant, or is it coming to the SBA and the SBA is then saying, hey, something was wrong? Because that could definitely be a reason for a delay. I know we've been trying to do power of attorney forms and other forms that the IRS accepts via fax and other ways, but they'll respond sometimes paper mail, right? And especially if that form was incorrect. You know, I got a client the other week that got it in paper mail, and we have been waiting this long time to see what the problem was. Do you know if the IRS is just responding back to you guys, or are they sending letters to the applicant to say that it was kicked back?
Well, I imagine, since the applicant is the one that's completing the 4506T, and, you know, we identifying the SBA as the recipient of the transcript, then I imagine, you know, they will respond to the applicant.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
That's the delay, is that you're waiting for something to come back in the paper mail from the IRS to say what's wrong. Yeah.
Now, you know, you can go online to irs.gov and you can open an account
Yeah.
or log into your account.
Mhm.
Because your account already exists, you can log into your account and
Right.
access certain information. Now
Mhm.
that information may be included about the
Mhm.
4506T,
Mhm.
you know, because they send emails. Because I've recently, you know, logged into my account and I would get emails
Mhm.
from the IRS. And so, you know, you may, you know, the audience may want to,
Try
you
to
know,
online create an
try to
account. Yep.
online, yeah, create an account, you
Mhm.
know, and then log in and see if they can find information about the 4506T,
Okay.
whether something was sent back to the client from the IRS because of
Mhm.
an error on the 4506T.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now I'm
All
tempted
right.
to, okay, yeah, I'm glad I did this. I said I was gonna make that the last slide, but really
Okay.
this is the important slide.
Right.
You know, what are the most common reasons for decline?
Okay.
You know, unsatisfactory credit history.
Mhm.
Now, as I stated, you know, if your credit score is below a 570,
Mhm.
then you know you're going to be denied. And the
Mhm.
reason, unsatisfactory credit history. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't, you know, still go through the reconsideration process.
Mhm.
So you just have to justify the reasons for denial. And I say it's here to request reconsideration. For this decline reason, the applicant must provide the following: a completed copy of 2019 filed federal tax return for the business, which SBA should already have that,
Mhm.
signed and completed. Well, they should already have the 2019
Mhm.
signed and completed 4506T, which they should already have that as well. And the SBA Form 2202 schedule liabilities, which we've already, you know, talked about each of these items.
Mhm.
And provide an explanation of any delinquent credit issues. So the big issue is providing an explanation of the delinquent credit issues.
Mhm.
Because these other forms, you know, SBA should already have the forms, but you could provide them, you know, anyway as part of a packet, you know, as part of your reconsideration packet.
Mhm.
Okay.
And the thing that I want to drill in on parentheses, I think we said this on the last webinar, but it looks like SBA has identified the Experian Vantage Score 3.0 as the beacon score that is going to be checked. So that if you guys see that in the parentheses, because I know I've been asked that as well, like, you know, well, which bureau? Here it's specified Experian Vantage Score 3.0.
Yeah, and I imagine, you know, you get a beacon score from, was it three different
Yeah, it's
credit
three
bureau
different ones.
agencies?
Yeah.
And
Well, that's why I
so,
was saying, is it just
yeah,
Experian or yeah,
and so I mean, you could, and sometimes the scores are different.
right.
Now, I don't know what the difference is. I mean, if you got a 560, you know,
Right.
based on Experian, now TransUnion, I think TransUnion
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
could have a, you know, 650,
Right.
which would be above the 570.
Right.
So if there's a case like that, then I mean, that's documentation that you can provide to
Okay.
SBA, you know, provide an explanation of any delinquent credit issues, plus, you know, the score. Now, I don't know if SBA is set on this Experian Vantage score,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, that's documentation, you know, from another credit bureau agency
Mm-hmm.
that supports your case.
Yeah, that's
So
good. Yep. Good to know.
unverifiable information, you know, and as I stated, you know, SBA on the front end, you know, we're doing identity verification checks. And so if we don't have sufficient information to verify your identity, then we'll decline it. And I think, you know, just to be transparent with you, and I think we're phasing out denials based on unverifiable information because that's just way too vague. It doesn't tell anybody anything.
Mm.
And so we're phasing out going forward. You know, we're going to
Well,
stop.
and the first thing I thought about too, because I actually have a freeze, you know, on all of my stuff,
Yeah.
as it relates to, you know, having been the victim of identity theft. So you have a lot of people that that may have freezes on various things, and verifying my identity is always the absolute worst because I have all that stuff in place. And so, that's what I immediately think about when I see unverifiable information, because I always have to go through it because of the freezes. So yeah, that's interesting. I mean, but it seems like the same piece here though is that you're still going to be submitting the information that's required in any case anyway. Like, you're still going to have to submit these documents once they verify you. So it's not like it's that much of a extra step, I guess. I don't know.
That's true. Because I mean, it's the same information, the 2019 tax returns and
Mhm.
4506T, the 2202 schedule liabilities.
Yeah.
And then, the new piece of information is a voided check, matching
Yeah.
the bank account, provided on the application. And then copies of, your driver's license, the back and front copies of your driver's license or passport. So you provide this information to help identify, what's
Your
unverifiable.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
So we can wrap it up unless you have any more questions, because this is just a recap. The next couple of slides is a recap.
Okay.
What we talked about. I just want to kind of reinforce it,
Let's
to help
see.
people out. What can we use the loan proceeds for? We talked about that. Operating expenses, pay regularly scheduled debt payments, payroll, rent, mortgage, utilities, other ordinary business expenses. So we can, the loan terms.
I'm scrolling through here now. Those folks here in Zoom, as well as the folks that are watching on Facebook, if you guys have any questions about what we've gone over, or if you just joined and caught the tail end of it, I am going to be leaving this webinar up as well, just because it's just been so much great information that has been covered that I believe can really, really go a long way, even for folks who have been denied, to reconsider your information and get that information back in. And we have definitely gone for roughly 2 hours. I need to just, for moving forward, just tell you guys, hey, we're going to be on here for 2 hours because, again, that's the whole purpose of these webinars, these free webinars that we do. If you follow TNB Tax and Financial Services, or now Access Granted, my nonprofit, you know that this is one of my core missions, is to unlock information to you that may not traditionally be there for you, so that you are able to make decisions regarding your business to get access to capital, period. So that's why we do this. So I am going to close it out and thank Mr. Perkins yet again for the 5th time to come on and doing a webinar with my audience. I appreciate the audience for being so engaging in asking the questions. For those of you who will watch this on the replay, please do go ahead and put your questions in the comments. And anything that I can't readily answer, I will absolutely forward that over to Mr. Perkins. I also said at the top of the video, if you want to, I know Mr. Perkins said, you could call him, but if you want to have some translation going on with your denial letter, then please just give me your email address. And I'll make that connection to you, or create a portal where that information can be sent over, and we try to navigate through this process for you. That does not mean an automatic approval on anything. That just means that we are here to help navigate through the process of your business, getting possible access to capital that it needs. Thank you, Chris, for the comment, and Curtis with the Black Chamber of Commerce here in Birmingham, Nikisha, Krishan, Sandra, everyone that joined us and asked those questions. And please do continue to share this video to your timelines, because I want to make sure y'all get it right from the source. Don't y'all be paying this money to people that pop up in these Facebook groups. You don't know who they are and not tied to a business or anything. You know, I'm going to keep it real. And you're paying them money or giving them a portion of your money. And, you know, okay, y'all fill in the blanks. Fill in the blanks, okay? So, all right, we are done. Thank you, everybody, again. Have a great, what is today? Wednesday? Wednesday. There we go. Have a great Wednesday, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Talk to you later.
All right.